Hi guys, welcome back to the Brew show. Today I am attempting to bottle my beer with a Pellicle. So I've got my notes here. It was intended to be a Session IPA type thing, or pale or whatever you want to call it, and I've got an OG of 1035 or 1035, whatever you want to say it. And I think, I haven't written it in my notes here, it was going to go down, ferment to about 3%, so like a nice sessionable session IPA. But when I opened the fermenter about 2 months ago to bottle it, it had this film on top of it, and like white film, lots of bubbles in it, and basically, from what I've seen and read and heard from like homebrewer forums and stuff, it's a beer pellicle. So, on the advice of the forums and what other people have done, is I've left it to just do its thing, because although it's not ideal to have a pellicle in your beer, it isn't necessarily like a chucker. So I tasted it on the day I wanted to bottle about 2 months ago. When I wanted to dry hop about 2 months ago, and it tasted how it should minus the dry hop. So just like a Session IPA, it wasn't actually too bad, and the smell was fine. So going on the advice that it may not be ruined, I've kept it and just let it do its thing for 2 months. It may be that the Pellicle has soured the beer, which, sour beers are quite popular nowadays, could be alright. It may be absolutely ruined, I'm not even sure yet, but only one way to find out is to have a look. So, oh yeah, it's still there, hasn't dropped. Smells pretty good, to be honest. That is the Pellicle. See, it's all white, kind of powdery looking. Yeah, so still got this Pellicle on top. Sometimes they float to the bottom, so that was kind of one of the things I was hoping for, because if it floats to the bottom, it will sit below where the tap is on the fermenter, as like all the yeast does, normally, and I'd be able to bottle my beer without getting any of the Pellicle in, and also take a sample without getting it. But it hasn't done that. If anything, it is more like it's more Pellicle than it was, but it doesn't smell bad. Just going to take gravity reading now. Try not to get too much Pellicle in, because I don't really want to drink that. Don't want to disturb it either at this point, because it's sitting nicely on top, which means the beer underneath is lovely and clear, and also it's been there for 2 months now, so you can see that, you can see right through it. Should have made a note of what the gravity was when I first found it, but I didn't. I always talk about these brewing books and writing everything down, and I failed at my own rule, but never mind, So let's have a look at this then. I think it was about 106 or 1006, because it's a session beer, it's going to have a lower final gravity than normal beer, because there's less in it. But let's have a look at this. To my eye, that says 1004. Stick that lid on for now, because we don't want any else, well, it's already kind of ruined, isn't it? But as it's summer, there's a few flies around, and no doubt they'll be attracted to the Pellicle, whatever it is. Bit of a sour smell to it, I reckon, at this moment. But yeah, so it is 1004. It was 106 before, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, but I kind of remember. So I'll have to work out what the percentage is, but it smells like a regular beer, to be honest. Just trying to pour off those pellicle bits there. We don't want those. Maybe a little bit sour. Just gonna keep rinsing away these bits. I think that's good actually now. Let's get my glass of rinse. Now before I go to the trouble of bottling, well, washing all the bottles for bottling, best to give it a taste to make sure it's not a chucker. Tastes like beer. Nothing wrong with it. Very flat, obviously. It's had 2 months to off-gas all any of the carbon dioxide left in over from fermentation, and it's definitely stopped fermenting because over the course of 2 months it's only dropped 2 gravity points, so that is like absolutely nothing. Slight funk to it. Tastes a bit like beery. It's a bit watery, but it's a Session IPA after all, so initial thoughts are it's going to be okay. Yeah, get out of it, fly. Almost caught that one. Yeah, and when I tasted it before, it tasted alright, so yeah, I reckon I'll might not bottle the whole batch. I'll do about 6 bottles, and then I'll throw the rest, just leave it, let it do its thing, and keep it as an experiment. But yeah, it's kind of surprising really how nothing really has happened. Still a bit like, I'm not sure about it, so I'll do a few, just test it out, you know. I don't want to bottle up 20 bottles of beer. I think there was like 12 litres in there actually. So that'd be like 24 bottles of beer. So no sense in wasting all that time and effort cleaning and etc. So yeah, we'll do that and we'll come back in another 2 weeks once it's carved up and we'll try it again. Alright, so I bottled 8 in the end instead of 6 because I really hate throwing beer away, and because it was quite flat after being in the fermenter for 2 months, it lost a lot of the carbonation that's normally like left over from a brew. So I've primed it to 2.8 volumes ish with about 4 grams of sugar. So hopefully, because it was a bit flatter, that will counteract the loss of CO2. And if it does go, like if there is more than I think there is in it, then like 2.8 isn't too bad for an IPA. Because it's quite a low body, the carbon dioxide will give it a bit more mouthfeel, a bit more body. So hopefully, you know, that's all right. But to be honest, seeing as I've had a Pellicle in this beer, it's a miracle that I've got these 8 bottles. So I'm going to take that as a half win. I'm going to call it Funkmaster P because it's a bit funky and it's got a Pellicle. You know, I like, you know, silly names, so get that written down. Funkmaster P. And I did a gravity check just before I bottled. It was 104, it was saying, but I forgot to take into consideration the heat. It's actually 25 degrees on the fermenter today on the side, so that means that the hydrometer, which is calibrated to 20 degrees, is like slightly out. So on the software I use, you just type in the actual temperature of the brew and it gives you an accurate reading. So it said 104, but actually it's 105, which only slightly out, but you know, good to be exact. And that gives me an ABV of 3.94. So, nice little session IPA. Bit of funky potentially. It might funk up some more. I'm not entirely sure because I've never had a Pellicle before, and to be honest, it's not really changed it that much. So it could just be basic session IPA with, you know, a forgotten Pellicle. Look at this clear one, because I bottled it. I didn't disturb the top of the brew where the Pellicle is. It's like forms of that film you saw. So because the tap's below it, it fills the bottles from underneath and has left me a lovely clear beer with no Pellicle in. So I kept a clear one just to be able to see that better, and also if it, you know, with the sugar it might form another Pellicle, so you'll be able to see it on top there, in which case I'll probably just chuck them out. But yeah, that's it for now. All I've got to do is clean everything that has come into contact with the Pellicle thoroughly. Now normally I just I give my fermenters a rinse out of water and just, you know, general wipe, because when it comes to brewing day I'll give them a thorough clean. But because of the Pellicle, I'm going to actually use some bleach today to kill everything. Bleach, bit of super hot water, like not quite boiling because it's plastic and you can sort of not melt things, but they can warp a little bit. So, you know, hot water, bit of bleach, and then rinse it out thoroughly and like let it dry properly. And then next time I come to brew, I'll give it an extra rinse as well, just in case there's any residual bleach, like chemical residue left over. And same goes for everything that has touched the Pellicle. So the hydrometer, my little turkey baster, it's all going to go in, going to get some bleach, and hopefully the fermenter is good. I'm also throwing the yeast that I used, because I saved this yeast, the yeast that you brewed this beer with, I saved it from the previous batch, so potentially at that point I could have got a contamination, so it could have been anywhere along the line it got contaminated. But basically throw everything out, you know, don't reuse stuff, make sure you thoroughly wash everything, and hopefully it won't come back. Now sometimes they do come back, in which case, you know, you just have to either use that equipment as your sour beer equipment, you know, because sometimes you just can't get stuff out sometimes. So either throw it or you use it as a sour beer fermenter, or repurpose it for something. It's quite a big bucket. Probably use it as a mini water butt in a garden if you're that way inclined. So yeah, all bowled up. Gonna wash everything thoroughly, and that is my Funkmaster P Pellicle beer.
Hey DJ, give me a beat. It's the Lion Brew Show. I cook too. Do some garden and foraging stuff. Terrible raps. Like, subscribe, and all that crap.